A character riddled with tragedy and sacrifice. She who gave it all and asked for nothing in return. So I shall spread the story. We'll be covering Cantarella's story in the main quest and her companion quest, skipping through parts that are not focused around her, covering the smaller details throughout the quest and minor callbacks to previous quest lines, as well as some lore bits of the Fisalias. Maybe lots of lore bits actually. Well, let's begin. We first meet Cantarella after receiving an invitation from her through her butler Sebastian, wanting to clear up previous misunderstandings supposedly due to our run-in with the Fisalias thus far in the story. Travelling to Porto-Veno, where the Fisalias are located, we finally get to meet Cantarella.
少々お待ちください。すぐ当主にお知らせいたします。
その必要はないわ。お客様を待たせるなんて失礼極まりないでしょ。ましてや私自身で招待したのだから。フィサリアファミリー第36代当主カンタレラ・フィサリアよ。体感せし者、新たな狂気の宴の王。
Choosing to drop formalities with her as soon as we meet her, we are ushered into her private study to discuss more of the matters previously mentioned. Though before any of that can start, she offers us some tea as an apology for our transgressions with Gilberto and the difficulties we have faced during our time in Renacita. Upon accepting her tea, thus accepting her apology, we realize this tea we are drinking is from Jinzhou. We'll come back to the connection from Jinzhou in a bit, but for now, Cantarella leads the conversation to having us as a mediator between the Fisalias and the Montellis. Though before we agree to anything, we do want to know more about the Fisalias' true intentions and see how, from the start of Renacita's quest line all the way to now, they have not only been at odds with us but also seem to be worshipping the Trinodian Leviathan. She explains that Gilberto's mind had long been lost before changing the discussion to our perspective view on Raguna as a whole during our travels. We find out that Raguna has already long fallen to the Trinodian, due to his unique ability to merge and simulate, foreshadowing that the Sentinel Imperator has long been corrupted. We find out more about the Trinodian's abilities through this conversation with Cantarella, finding out that unlike Ophrax, the Trinodian of War, Leviathan influences civilization by corrupting their minds. She continues how the two previous attempts to corrupt Raguna have failed. It isn't stated, but this is a reference to both the first and second Dark Tide. The majority of Raguna is now split in two, which is why despite the civil unrest, so far there haven't been any outbursts from its people. As the conversation carries on, we find out that Cantarella herself knows that the Order is corrupt, albeit stating there is some truth to the Gospels they preach. She opens up to us in hopes they will listen to her requests, leading us into the deepest part of Porto-Veno's castle. Before that, there are some small details we can see. A statue of the corrupted Imperator situated at the front, being dusty, and the scent of Violacas that were present during our conversation and study. Unsure if the Violacas are the same plant as the Violas we gather in the overworld that lets us synthesize strong fluid stabilizers. But once we enter the deepest part of Porto-Veno, we are greeted by a statue of Imperator's true form, before being corrupted, and the divine soul of Divine. It's explained that this location is actually a sanctuary for Imperator, thus why its true form is in statue here. Curiously, just seeing the statue causes us to suffer a headache and be noticed by Leviathan himself. unsure about how the Trinodian's power works here, as it's a one-off thing that's pretty strange. Though this discovery explains that Imperator, instead of our prior beliefs to be a C-type sentinel, is actually a wind type, or an Aero type. After which, these truths are revealed to us, Cantarella finally tells us the request she has for us, which is to persuade Jue to save Imperator, a request we are unable to accept. You'll learn an interesting fact about this request later on during a card ride, but for now, Cantarella offers us a stay at the Fisalias in order to avoid the Order and a glimpse into the past of Renacita. We steer the direction in a different way though, and explain how we've seen the stories of the stained glass back in the Montellis Act with Carlotta. We collaborate our stories on incidents together with Cantarella, finding out that the Carnival is not how we resonate with the Sentinel, but with Divine. How that works is entirely because of Imperator's unique ability to split and manipulate space, splitting off his power into Divine. Through this revelation, we also find out that Cantarella knows that the maiden is already dead, though it is due to a writing on her wrist that was written by her. She explains that each year the Fisalia family would hold the Divine Trials, something we will come to learn more about during the companion quest, but for now, the family simply sends their strongest Fisalias to resonate with Divine while overclocked. And though none had successfully resonated with Imperator, they would get glimpses of the truth, Cantarella being one of them, seeing the Sentinel's corrupted form and the inverted runes suspended in the sky. If you recall, Abby has mentioned about Imperator being hidden up really high in the sky during the initial release of patch 2.0. Ironically, this is where we'll be going next. Aside from the inverted runes, we also learned that Divine is the only way to open the Solar Sphere, that is keeping Cartagia locked up. We'll end up pulling Divine here and revealing the fact they were the arbiters of the Sentinels. Finding out also that the Fisalias revere the Sentinel as their one true divinity. I'm not sure if it's Sentinels or just Imperator actually. We'll eventually tell Cantarella about the conversations we've had with Cartagia and our connection with the Sentinels being their rover. Teasingly, she does ask us if she would like us to call her master. Sadly, you can't answer yes. After this conversation, she'll bring us to the underground station below the Fisalia family that leads straight to the Sonoros Sphere. And if you're wondering why is there just an underground station plus a cable car straight to the Sonoros Sphere, it's because previously the Fisalias, after choosing to side with the Order, chose to send their scions of the family to school to the Avenolium, which was used as a seminary where Cartagia studied at. We'll end up learning a lot on this cable car ride about how she knows us prior to our arrival in Raguna and the rumours regarding her, all of which she has known for quite some time but chose not to speak of. Well, let's get on this right then. Right at the start of this cable car ride, Cantarella notices how troubled we are. So far throughout the story, Cantarella has picked up on subtle emotional cues and worries for us despite not knowing us for long. Setting aside her caring nature to us, she takes this time to dispel our worries and troubles, giving her own little insight of how, albeit it feels like fate is leading us here, it is about our own choices that have brought us here. We then go through with her the rumours we've heard of her from Kikona earlier in the quest. Her being a recluse, a mystic, obsessed with crafting poisons, and that she poisoned her predecessor? She explains that rather than her being a shut-in in Porto-Veno, it's more that she's barely been in Renacita at all. In her attempts to find a way to save Imperator, she has hardly the time to be in Renacita. Sadly, all potential ways will lead to dead ends. Though this is where we learn of her friend in Mingting, who had told her stories of us. This friend of hers is probably the one who introduced her to the tea in Jinzhou we found so familiar. It's most likely Changli, who is known as the former Secretary General of the Central Secretariat in Mingting. Just a little trivia for my favourite Changli. Though outside of their recluse rumour, we find out that the rest are all true. This next bit ties into more about the Divine Trials, but for now we find out that it's a Fisalia tradition for the successor to handcraft the poison to feed to their ruling head when they have fallen prey the Fernodian's influence, thus keeping the Fisalia head always on Imperator's side. Though in Cantarella's case, during her succession ritual, an incident sparked these rumours. Many of these explained in her companion quest rather than in any of the dialogue we have of her moving forward. The last bit of information we find out about her is that the Bane is a title that she's called outside the Fisalia family, though it is a title carried by every generation, albeit in her own words. I am the most potent one yet. Before we disembark, we do find out that the succession ritual has been ongoing for centuries and decades, hinting that the Fisalia family might be 3,600 years old. Maybe, who knows? It's just a rough guess, seeing as how Cantarella is the 36th matriarch. Let us disembark on this ride and get back onto the main quest. Upon us reaching the seminary's undercrypt, we find out that Cantarella on her previous visit hadn't experienced any tacit discords in the surrounding, hinting that the sonorous sphere may be leaking tacit discords out, something we make quick work of before encountering Gulphouse that Cantarella has never seen before, asking us to spare a few for her, though we never really reply her request here. As we approach closer to the center of the seminary, we find out that the second dark tide occurred right here at the Evernolium, finally putting a name to this seminary and the location of the second dark tide. Learning that it was during Carthagina's coronation that the second dark tide had occurred. Funnily enough, the way it is explained next sounds like the Evernolium quite literally floated away. As it is mentioned that what most people remember these days are the Evernolium disappearing into the sky, with their memories of the second dark tide vanishing as if it had never happened. Neither records nor people have recollection of it, Cantarella being the exception, as she had first-hand encounter of the dark tide occurring as she was just outside the seminary on a boat. Though she never really knew what happened to the Evernolium and the second dark tide until her attempt to resonate with the Divine later on. We can assume during this time Cantarella herself was going to the seminary, or at least a few years before she would succeed the Fisalia head as the 36th matriarch. She warns us that it's best for us to not trust Carthagina yet, as she might be influenced by the Trinodian still, a reality she has experienced firsthand her whole life. After reaching the center of the undercrypt and crossing the broken bridge, we are greeted by Carthagina, looking delighted to meet us. Sorry Carthagina, this video isn't about you though. Carthagina, upon first meeting Cantarella, states that it seems her ties with the Order are more complicated than they appear. To which Cantarella simply replies with, she had the privilege to watch the Blessed Maiden's performance at the carnival once, though it is a surprise that she looks just as young as she did during her performance that day, despite them being around the same age. Maybe one day we'll find out how old she is actually. Carthagina holding her arms to the side before speaking of divine, the sort of divinity someone outside the Fisalia should not have known about. Though she explains that memories float into her mind as we enter the sonorous sphere, explaining the sword's origins to her. This creates minor conflict in information as Carthagina's attempts to resonate with the sword leaves her with no success, leading her to simply assume that she is the Trinodian's resonator. The statement we spell from her before she leads us onto a quest for the Sword of Discord Hogness and the Sword of Virtue Haltia, along with 3 pedestals correlating to the swords we have now, to break the seal that's keeping the main tower locked. Truthfully, we don't know much about why information is simply just flying into Carthagina's head. It's the reason why I'm suspicious of this whole quest line. Though it does conclude in a way that feels satisfying and fulfilling, there are far too many questions as to how things are happening and the abilities of the Leviathan. Even his whereabouts after the questline concludes is unknown. Before we start our grand quest, Cantarella has a moment with Carthagina, starting with how she is addressed. Cantarella calling Carthagina Lady Maiden, before being stopped by her, admitting that she must be a fake and to address her simply as Carthagina. Cantarella, hearing this, visibly disappointed, tells her she has been waiting for this very moment to save both the Sentinel and her family. Regardless if it's a trap or not, she will not go back, warning her that if the final answer troubles her, she suggests that Carthagina step back and let us resolve this situation ourselves. It was at this moment that got me wondering, but there's been several moments throughout the main quest thus far that feels like Cantarella has not lost her memories. Or at least she's pieced together quite a fair amount of details to help her understand what happened during her attempt to resonate with Divine, and who Carthagina really resonated with. After that conversation, Cartasia explains that placing the vine on the pedestal will elevate the tower into a Venolium. But right before we do, we have a brief conversation with Cantarella on the things she said to Cartasia, only for her to explain that she did it due to how effective it would be on her personality. We then float into what looks like a black hole in the sky. Upon reaching a Venolium, we float into the sky only to be greeted by 2.2's most iconic view, the inverted tower. Cartasia helps us safely land back on the ground, and here we start the bulk of the quest of 2.2, and where Cantarella starts to take a real backseat in the story. We learn that the inverse gravity here is to prevent the tacit discords and the dark tide and the ruins themselves from falling. Cantarella's view on the inverted tower is of a symbolic reminder that their beliefs have been turned on their head. She also mentions how the view here matches the view she had seen during her attempt at resonating divine. Cartasia suggests, until we are used to the gravity here, we should travel via Faum, halting cutely before explaining that it's a gondola she named. Honestly, she's so cute. When we reach the gondola, we are greeted with the fact that it only has 2 seats, and this begins the end of Cantarella traveling with us. Cantarella mentions how she gets to enjoy a free ride after we have scouted the paths ahead. That's about it. After clearing the remnants of the dark tide and reaching the Tower of Salvation, we bring Cantarella over before we move over to our first pedestal. Before we could enter the tower, Cantarella stops us and questions if we're alright. After noticing we had fought our way here, in worry she gives us 3 nutrient blocks and we make our way in. As we plunge the vine into the pedestal, we enter a cutscene that shows Cartasia's past. When it's over, it seems we're all recovering from a headache, and the tacit mark on our hand glows green. Abby comes out telling us that we have absorbed a humongous frequency, Cantarella being the last to recover from this. Her eyes here looked as if she had just seen something completely different. Knowing what happens next here, it really does come off as, at this moment, she might have just pieced together a bunch of things. Abby confirms that the frequency we just absorbed was Imperator's power, and now we have the ability to split and manipulate space, thus turning the vine into a simple blade once again. We then collaborate the visions we saw after plunging the vine into the pedestal, and Cantarella shares that she only saw fragmented and blurry images that seemed to belong to other places within the solar sphere. But if recall, the vine was resonated by the Fisalias at least once with the strongest will. The divine trials were used to choose the strongest will of the Fisalias, and it's safe to assume their successors as well, as the head of this Fisalia would require the strongest will, but the memory loss would have to go somewhere, wouldn't it? Being that she saw fragmented and blurry images that are elsewhere within the solar sphere, I'm just guessing here, but maybe the previous heads of the Fisalias, when they attempted to resonate with the vine and lost an ounce of their memory, those memories ended up escaping the different parts of the solar sphere because those memories didn't belong to Cantarella, thus unable to return to the original owners of those memories. They're probably scattered around, and that's what she's saying. At least that's what I understand. After further discussion of what happens, Cantarella suggests we rest for the night, and here we can ask her for a bit more information regarding the Fisalia family, Cartasia, and the Divine Trials. We'll be going over each dialogue option here. We first ask Cantarella if it's true that the Fisalia family was one of the first factions that started the conflict in the stained glass back in 2.0 when we were with Carlotta. She tells us that the Fisalias was the leader of one of the factions, but it was a really long time ago. And after their defeat, the Union was disbanded, and the Fisalias gradually withdrew from the public eye. But the main reason for their change in belief was because the vine was actually given to their family by the first primus, Napoli II, who was the first resonator of Imperator. So after the first dark tide had cleared up, Napoli II had a private meeting with the head of the Fisalias. Strange, because during this time, the Order of the Deep was just established, as it only came about after the first dark tide was repelled. Thus, there were no connections between the Fisalias and the Order yet. Here we learn how the connection came to be. But during this private meeting, he had explained what had transpired during his pilgrimage to stop the first dark tide, reaching the end of it only to be greeted by a battlefield of darkness and suffering. No sanctuary and definitely no paradise. The heavenly voices he heard weren't of revelations from Imperator, but the whispers of Leviathan corroding his mind. We get a little more backstory from Cantarella here about how the first dark tide came to be, but unsure if it's just an assumption from here, since honestly not quite sure how she gets this information. She tells us that Imperator had found out about Leviathan's plan to overrule civilization by assimilating into it and thus Leviathan hurriedly sent the first Dark Tide as an attempt to completely corrupt Raguna and Imperator. In response, Imperator has split a portion of their power and entrusted it to Napoli II, giving him the strength to imbue echoes that could repel the tacit discords and purify the Dark Tide. If we look back at the glass, this power is seen being used through the lantern in stained glass. The other half of Imperator's powers were within Divine, which makes Imperator powerless, giving the chance for Leviathan to merge with Imperator's body, turning her into a hippocampus. Though the next question would be, should Napoli II fight against Leviathan? Well, after the merger of Leviathan and Imperator, Napoli's soul was in a constant power struggle between Leviathan and Imperator. Having no protection from Imperator, his mind would slowly fall to Leviathan's influence and go against his own people. After his confession to the head of the Fisalia, he would ask to be released from his suffering and thus howl. Right after establishing the Order of the Deep, he would pass abruptly, passing his belief in Imperator onto the Fisalias in hopes they would be able to repel Leviathan. When asked about Carthagesia, she simply replied that she was merely harsh to her because of her accomplishments prior to the story, and how she has always stood on the side of humanity, but knowing of Leviathan's ability, she had no choice but to see things differently. Only then can she be aware that her trust in Carthagesia is her own thoughts and not influenced by Leviathan. When asked about the divine trial, her response is short and almost dismissive, calling it a trivial experiment to find those with the strongest will to resonate with the divine. Yet after so many attempts, the only answer they received was, "The maiden is dead." We are forced to stop the conversation here. When we end the dialogue here, Cantarella informs us that she'll be going through places we've previously visited looking for clues, and then hands us a homemade panini along with an explanation of why the head of the Fisalias will make her own food, saying that it would be far too easy to poison her if she didn't make it herself. After a night of rest, we will bump into Cantarella in the morning, clearing out tacit discourse that she had encountered while she was trying to sneak off. We offer her some help, and after clearing the tacit discourse, we will part ways with her, as she wishes to follow up on visions she had seen yesterday. Also not wanting to just wait around for us to clear the remnant Dark Tides. Before she leaves, we show concern for her safety travelling alone, while she simply tells us she hopes to see what we have achieved after she returns. Then asking if she could take Divine, Carthagesia explains now that its energy is gone after being pulled off the pedestal, it's useless. Cantarella replying her that it may still come in handy. We exchange contact information with Cantarella in our terminal, and she leaves jokingly telling us she'll ring us up after all this is over. We won't be seeing Cantarella until we reach the Tower of Unity and plunge Hawkins into its pedestal. After recovering more memories of Carthagesia, we call Cantarella at night to explain what we've discovered through the recovered memories. She tells us that it's safer to stay wary still, as we are unsure what Carthagesia would become at the end of recovering all her memories. When asked about updates on her end, she explains how she's found several things that might tip the scales in our favour, but it would take far too long to explain to us, telling us we deserve to rest instead of hearing it, reassuring that she would be there when the journey ends, and that she will speak of it then. She doesn't. The next time we see Cantarella will be at the very end, as she said she would. But we wouldn't even see her in fact. Carthagesia sees her. After plunging the last sword of Virtue Haltia into its pedestal at the Tower of Ascension, and unlocking the main tower, rejecting Carthagesia's request to be remade and letting Leviathan's power go back to Fleuris, Cantarella appears right as Carthagesia stands up, wanting to assist in our final battle, explaining how she had arrived earlier due to foul, but didn't want to interrupt our moment with Carthagesia and our choice. She then hands Divine back to Carthagesia, explaining that it will help her resist Leviathan's attacks. We learn that to pass the Divine trial, every potential maiden must resonate with Divine, and those who survive would receive fragments of truth at the cost of memory loss, in varying degrees. Each of those lost memories falling into the sonar sphere, carrying faint traces of Imperator's power. Divine absorbs his energy, telling Carthagesia that the Sentinel energy does flow through her, making her more than worthy to wield this sword. But she has to choose to wield this sword. Only then will it become the Blessed Maiden's sword. Carthagesia asking if this sword also holds the sacrifice Cantarella had made, only for her to explain that her sacrifice was used up long ago. When she first resonated with Imperator, she had saw Fleuris through Imperator's corrupted eyes, battling Leviathan. She returned back the energy she had received from Imperator's second Second Awakening, giving Imperator enough control of her body so that Fleuris could slay the corrupted Imperator, thus making the real Blessed Maiden dead. But there isn't a reason why the false Blessed Maiden herself could not become the true Blessed Maiden instead. A person of true character should never be defined by an inanimate blade. Sharing her feelings that both her and Cartadesia were cursed to be playthings of Leviathan, but it doesn't mean that they cannot reshape their fate. As Cartadesia grabs her sword and leaves, Cantarella is seen visibly weakened and exhausted, her eyes closing and blurring, muttering to Cartadesia how if she had not stopped the second dark tide, well, there wouldn't be a way out. She slowly falls to exhaustion, her hands sliding down the walls with visible signs of Forte usage. It leaves faint traces of purple. She asks for a moment's rest, only to be interrupted by tacit discords. We can hear her reactivating her Forte before we pan into her eyes surrounded by yellow markings. She stands up slowly, composing herself before fending off the tacit discords. Her final appearance in the main quest is outside of Porto-Veno beside the bridge. Teasing us about forgetting her, she asks about Cartadesia before giving us a blood pact pledge, which symbolizes the unbreakable pact between us and the Fisalia family, each head of the family only entitled to one. We ask if that is all. She then asks if we would like more or want her to do something. Personally, I asked to have her position only for her to offer me to be a consort, wishing only I could say yes. We give her a final message from Imperator. From this day forth, you are free. She offers us more tea before ending this magical quest line, panning the camera into the fractured halo, which color will be different depending on whether you have disabled the Echo Mind control during the world quest Shadow of the Towers. I personally enjoy the end being beautiful blue with echo energy flowing to it, but you might enjoy the more dramatic look. Before we begin her companion quest, I'd just like to do a brief run through of her Forte Sea of Dreams, which might change how you view different story elements during the main quest and during the next part, the companion quest. Her Forte Sea of Dreams is a hallucinogenic toxin. It is explained as a paralytic poison more so than a highly lethal one, but with her control over it, it is often used as a way to cast hallucinations without any harm. Now, after going through a bunch of different videos of Cantarella, those yellow eye markings we see her have throughout the main quest around her eyes are not normally there. In fact, it might be an indicator of her Forte being in use on herself, which might also explain why Cantarella is also the head of the Fisalia with the strongest will that the Fisalias have ever seen. More so because of her ability to trap herself in a dream that allows her to resist the voices of the Leviathan. We begin her companion quest with a strange SOS message from Ghost Girl A, lost on the cliffs, falling into the deep sea. If there are gods in this world, please listen to our sincere prayers. Let the ghosts sunk in the depths return to the mortal world, not just on the night of remembrance, but let us return permanently to our homeland of Egla. We try to make sense of the message only for a sharp sound and an unease to hit us. Abby, being uncomfortable by a weird frequency connected to the message, goes back into our tassima and chooses to rest. To find out more about that weird frequency, we make our way into Eglia town, bumping into a guide who, after attempting to scare us, explains that the Night of Remembrance is but an annual festival held to honor those who have passed, dressing up as ghosts and joining in on different activities. We put on our laureate mask before being informed that we enjoy the same privileges as the hosts of the festival. We make our way into Anglia town, seeing the festival and jellyfish that leads us to Cantarella. Whilst looking for Cantarella in the center of the festival, we're distracted by the jellyfish, as Cantarella shocks us by whispering into our ear from the back. She questions us what we're doing here, as do we to her, reaching the conclusion we're both here to meet a ghost. We shared the strange message we received at the start to her. After sharing, she tells us why not offer our aid to those poor restless souls, then explaining to us that every night of remembrance has its own theme every year, this year's theme being Ghost Girl. She paints us this image, an innocent girl lost in the dark sea, here ripping her apart as her soul drifts away, while her body sinks ever deeper into the abyss. Despair consumes her bit by bit, until she transforms into a monstrous phantom. Now, doesn't this sound familiar? If you watch Cantarella's Resonator Showcase, this exact scene is shown. Though, I'm not quite sure about the monstrous phantom part. More so, she just kind of runs away from the tentacle monster. A thrilling story, she says, as she explains that it simply adds just the right flavor to an already exquisite dish. If you reply that you too enjoy exquisite things, she tells us we share similar tastes. Fun fact, but Cantarella's favorite foods are foods stripped of seasoning, as she can barely recall the natural taste of most foods, so... She then explains how hidden among the stalls set up for tonight are 3 riddles to explain the tale of the ghost girl, lightly joking that the stalls are ran by demons, but only to dispel it, saying there exists only distorted frequencies of men cloaked in disguise, driven by their unmet desires, both of which foreshadow what happens later on in the story. Solving all 3 riddles and uncovering the mystery of this year's theme, Ghost Girl allows us to ask the host for an elixir as well. The host that we have yet to meet, or have we? Cantarella herself is looking for a particular elixir, one that requires far too much to be made, though with us she says any elixir would be a delight to create. Elixir or poison, either she would love to explore as long as it's with us. She sings an old folk song from Night of Remembrance as we move to our first stall. We'll play this one more time at the end and it'll all make sense.
Offer your soul, surrender your flesh, give all you have, call the lost from their rest.
Well, to our first stall we go. Mammon, our first vendor, questions if we would like to reach for the brightest star in the sky or indulge in the greatest joy of the mortal world. Or maybe nothing could ever satisfy our endless desire. Cantarella dismisses his questions, explaining we are not one driven by greed, simply wanting to know the first riddle of the ghost girl. Sadly, the riddle doesn't come for free, and in exchange for the riddle we are to perform. A special performance from the laureate in exchange for the riddle. Unprepared, it seems a frequency controls us to perform a beautiful melody, one that seems to tie into something, but let's just enjoy it for now. As promised, Mammon tells us the first riddle, the Siren's Song. Long ago, a group of girls followed the siren's call out of town. They journeyed to the crown atop the mountain and to the waterfall that cascaded the depths. We'll talk more about the siren, but for now, we can clearly see these girls were called to Porto-Veno, potentially for the divine trials. Outside the riddle, Mammon gives us a music box that is shaped like an apple, in hopes that it might just sing with a song like we played earlier. As we can tell, Mammon, that's the name of a demon actually. Before we head to the next stall, we stop nearby with Cantarella to figure out why can't the music box play to no avail. We then move on to the second riddle in hopes of understanding the mystery more. Our second vendor, Beelzbul, is an apple vendor. In order to get the next riddle, we are to choose the freshest apple. I leave the selection to Cantarella, who returns us with a reassuring glance before selecting the right apple. Beelzbul gives us a coin and then tells us our second riddle, the red apple. The girls lined up for the apples, each one in vivid, glistening red. But why would apples appear in the deep sea? After leaving once again nearby, we stop to analyze the coin, showing one side with a doll in a red hat and the other with blue. The coin resembling more of a cock than a coin. Cantarella questions if these dolls are blessed or cursed. We make our way to the last vendor for our last riddle. We are greeted by Invidia, who runs the doll store. In order to get our last riddle, we must select the doll that stands out the most. Once again, I let Cantarella decide for us. After a brief moment, she picks up a doll that resembles the doll on the coin, the doll with a red hat. The longer we hold on to this doll, the more lifelike it becomes, which might be due to Cantarella's Forte, but that's just speculation. We then get our last riddle, the round hat. A girl dons her red dancing shoes and wears a scarlet hat, ready for the final act of her performance. Leaving the store and finding Cantarella to piece everything together, we start by analysing keywords of each riddle. The siren song, the red apple, and the red shoes and round hat. All 3 ending bitterly, we then take a look at items we've collected through these riddles. A dusty broken music box, a cock-like lucky coin, and a doll in a red hat. Relics of the past, she calls it, as they are no longer produced. We suggest assembling them into a Ballerina Music Box. We then find out that in the past, Cantarella had played this to pass the long endless quiet hours in the castle, remembering exactly how to piece each item back together. After reassembling the Ballerina Music Box, she suggests we perform to breathe life back into this old relic. Upon piecing together the secret of the music box, a melody mixed with dissonant notes appears in our mind, and we simply perform. After our performance, the doll speaks to us before playing and creating a 3D hologram that twirls with the melody before glitching out and vanishing.
始まる。
This melody reminding us of Porto-Veno castle. Before we can speak, a sharp headache strikes us though. The distorted frequencies intensifying, thus creating for us a reason to visit. We hold on to our head as we ask for a break somewhere. Cantarella explains we've been under the influence far too long, even more so in a place filled with spirits. She takes us to a castle where she has potions that can help ease the pain. Upon reaching her castle, she pours us some tea that awfully looks the same as the one she pours when you convene her, explaining how this potion she calls is brewed with poisons and other ingredients. As she tends to the gardens, we follow a mysterious girl who looks a lot like the girl on the coin and the doll on the music box. While trying to find answers, we find out that she's physically mute. Before she runs off, leading us to a garden of sea apples known to be poisonous, helping us solve the riddle, the red apple. We once again begin chasing her as she leads us to a garden of jelly rose Medusa, which we connect to as the red hat the girl is wearing, helping us link the ghost girls to the Fisalias. A tragic story which will explain the divine trials and why Cantarella was so hesitant to explain more about it during the main quest. Off we go on another chase with this ghost girl who leads us back to Cantarella. As she dances under the moonlight, seemingly regulating frequencies around her. She questions why we've come so far here. What other reason could we have but to find her? We ask her of the aforementioned plants that the mysterious girl has led us to. She explains that these two deadly lethal plants are plants that have been meticulously nurtured by generations of the Fisalia family, thus making a specialty of theirs. Confirming our suspicions of the second and last riddle by one of the first riddle, the Siren's Song. It is about Porto-Veno castle. The music box's melody and strange frequencies were from the ghost girls, who were probably poisoned and tortured in this castle. Their suffering and despair converging into this music box. As Cantarella explained that she often used to play in the past to pass the time, though never really explain what happened in that castle. We refuse to believe that the Fisalias would be this cruel, and finally realizing that it could only be the divine trials, a ritual to select a maiden of unbreakable willpower. The extremities of the methods finally coming full circle. Thus we have solved the theme for the night of remembrance, ghost girls. Not quite a win as we find out that suffering from the young woman of the Fisalias have created a sonosphere called the Sea of Ghosts, a sphere that encapsulates both the past and the present of the Fisalias, exposing their secrets. Cantarella wishes to relieve this trauma with us to finally free herself from the shackles of the past. Though a bit dark if she finds herself corrupted by the past, she wishes for us to release her. One request that we find concerning as she has way too much trust in us. One that she quickly dispels, telling us that we've seen right through her and all that the family conceals, ever since we've been to the sanctuary. In case you've forgotten, it's where Divine and the statue of Imperator's true form was located at. Even the conclusion of the main quest adds onto her trust for us, stating it would be the highest honor for us to pass the final judgment on her. Before we dive into the Sea of Ghosts, she reassures us that no poisonous creature shall ever harm us, as we are but the one she has chosen.
あなたは私が見込んだ人なのだから。
We are greeted by the interior of Porto-Veno upon diving in, though everything feels off to us. As the overflowing frequencies have enveloped the entire castle, whispers of the past lingers everywhere. Before we can begin our search for clues, Cantarella warns us while also giving us unrestricted access to Porto-Veno castle. We're given a lantern that allows us to travel between the past and present dimensions, allowing us to see clues from the past that the Sea of Ghosts wants to show us. Upon our first transition to the past, it seems spirits from the Fisalia family still linger around, having to free them from their suffering in both the past and the present dimensions. After we release the spirits, we find a note showing us the candidates for the divine trial Cantarella was part of. Mandragora Fisalia, Hepanon Fisalia, Cantarella Fisalia. These hinted to be direct line Fisalias. Chloe Fisalia, Anis Fisalia, and Marina Fisalia. These being the names of those outside of the direct Fisalia family. If you encountered the quest Trials of Old back in 2.0, you should remember the name Chloe, as she is the one we collect 4 medals via 4 trials for. The trials were around Castle Porto-Veno, and at the end of this mini quest line, she enters the castle in search of an elixir to cure Jojo. Back to the initial note, it seems the first trial for the divine trials will be one of selection. They are to choose the 3 most toxic sea apples from the depths, without the use of any external tools to determine the toxicity or aid them in retrieving the sea apples. In return, the chosen one at the end of these trials will receive an elixir capable of granting any wish. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? After reading the note, we ask if it's possible for Cantarella to expose everything she's been through, to which she explains that if she does, there's a chance that the sonosphere might collapse and drown us, leaving our only option to go through what the sonosphere is showing us. After this conversation, we go on to find the first sea apple and the second sea apple, as well as clearing the contamination. Upon grabbing the first apple, we're greeted with a note from Chloe to Anis about her worries with the trials, as well as overhearing a Fisalia girl whispering that poison can be medicine too if you add in just the right amount. This Fisalia girl is Cantarella, as on several instances she does mention about poisons being used as ingredients for healing elixirs. Chloe then talks of wanting to learn the Fisalia secrets of poisons to figure out the ingredients, allowing her to make an antidote for Jojo, before ending the letter warning Anis that they do not have the Fisalia blood, despite the divine trials being exclusive to the Fisalia family. After reading this letter, Cantarella explains how due to the nature of the ritual, demands every family of the Fisalia to offer their daughters. But instead, some families will get young girls who resemble their own daughters used as substitutes, thus explaining how Chloe, Anis, and Marina are in the divine trials. She goes on to explain how the previous head of Fisalias knew of this scandal, though allowed it to happen in hopes of refining the outsiders into Fisalias through suffering. Upon picking up the second sea apple, we see a second letter from Chloe to Anis. She explains how she's tried 4 different poisons, almost debilitating, before she took a medicine from Cantarella that helped her with her symptoms, explaining how she only trusts her because of how different she was from all the other Fisalias, to the point of ostracization. Chloe wanting to ask help from Cantarella about mixing a potion to help Jojo, before explaining about a secret 3 knocks before Anis opens the door. Cantarella expanding more on this and giving us more examples of their special codes they use to meet up in secret, humming a special tune. Use the right color, knock on the door 3 times every 2 seconds. Often meeting up to confide in each other in fear of who will vanish next or what tomorrow might bring. After cleansing the contamination on the book, we look for the secret bookshelves where it belongs, only to be intrigued by footsteps leading near us to its many footprints of varying sizes, but only one being clear enough. Cantarella footprints being among them. Placing the book into the secret bookshelf, we find our third sea apple and our last letter from Chloe. She wasn't able to bring back a sea apple, as smelling them was enough to make it impossible to breathe. Feeling like her throat was being crushed, frustrated she could not awaken any ability or gain any immunity to poisons. She wanted to continue trying for Jojo's sake and the fact that Anis could pass the trial, and that she could too, though Anis who passed could no longer speak, having her vocal cords permanently destroyed by the poison. Cantarella explains once again how the Fisalias that are built on poisons had introduced their children to different poisons from a young age, thus creating a gradual build-up of resistance to them, making them immune to most poisons. Before we move on and see who passed the first trial, it's highly likely that Anis is the girl who led us here to this sonosphere, and the ghost girl A who initially sent us that message. She who could no longer speak sent letters to us leading us to this sonosphere, and the story of the divine trials. Mandragora Fisalia, Hepanon Fisalia, Cantarella Fisalia, and Anis Fisalia. These are the candidates who have passed the trial of poison, Chloe and Marina having failed. Though truly there are no winners in this trial. Failing is but succumbing to the poison, whilst passing is merely falling into a greater darkness. After another round of freeing spirits, we encounter a door from the past. We knock 3 times as Chloe once did. The frequency surrounding the door begins to shift. After entering, it seems that it led us to a safe house, a detail we'll be bringing back. Cantarella explains that even in depths of the sea, there will be a place for resting like the eye of a storm, telling us to either gather our thoughts or rest. In the center, a singular jellyfish Medusa gestures to us, before a mysterious door appears behind us in the center of the room. Just a speculation, but it appears the jellyfish Medusa could be Anis guiding us. All of this also hinting at the fact that Anis is already dead. That I don't think was hard to piece together. We inspect the room, finding a diary, a bookshelf that requires a fairy tale sketchbook, and the fairy tale sketchbook. Picking up the picture book, it tells of a story of 6 princesses. A knight princess, a sorceress princess, and a commoner princess, a noble princess, and an angel princess assembled before the castle. Knight princess atop her noble mount took the lead through the castle hedge maze and opened the castle gates. Commoner princess consumed poisonous mushrooms which she mistook as edible. Sorceress princess rendered aid by brewing a curative potion. Noble princess who knew the castle well elegantly circumvented all of the hidden traps. Angel princess followed everyone with a faint smile on her lips. The princesses gathered in the castle's main hall where the queen proclaimed their first task was to find the golden apple in the apple tree forest. Apple tree forest on the castle grounds grows apples red and round, a few land making a thump, knocking heads and rising bumps. Apples fall into the earth's hold, most are red but some are gold. Whose head will the gold apple hit? Who will leave the forest with it? The queen sits with her meal in place, waiting for fruit to take its place. As the juicy bite goes down, behold on her head the dawn crown. In the end, everyone will surely find their own golden apple that make their dreams come true. A story written by all of the candidates. Sorceress Princess is Cantarella, Noble Princess is Hebanon, Knight Princess is Mandragora, Commoner Princess is Chloe, and Angel Princess is Anis. Honestly, the foreshadowing that Anis is already dead is actually crazy. I just wanted to clear up who these princesses are ahead of time, but it will make sense as we go through this story further on. Cantarella telling us of the bookshelf holding many more pure and sweet fantasies the ghost wrote. We place the book in the bookshelf and are greeted by another story. The Knight Princess wished to improve everyone's lives. The Sorceress Princess wished to go out into the world, maybe creating new medicine. The Noble Princess just wished to not continue these trials. The Knight Princess simply told the Noble Princess she can't back out. The Commoner Princess wished to cure Jojo and return home happily. The Angel Princess simply wished for everyone's wishes to come true. Though time has yellowed these pages, the girl's laughter and joy still dance vividly across each line. But it remains trapped on paper, lost to time. Before we leave through the door, we can ask Cantarella some questions actually. Asking about the 5 other girls, about Chloe and what exactly happened. When asked about these girls, although every girl came from different backgrounds and had their own unique personalities, they all held the same determination for a future where freedom might bloom. Asking about Chloe, she simply hopes that she is somewhere where no pain can reach her anymore. And when asking about what happened, she explains again that she can't tell us anything as long as we remain trapped within the depths. We leave this place and begin our second trial. To claim the title of Maiden, one must demonstrate the strength to make decisive choices. Excessive emotions are vulnerabilities and burdens for any candidate worthy of that title. Each participant has to capture the most venomous jellyfish from the sea and return to this location. Upon your return, you will team up with another candidate and exchange your catch. The candidate with the more potent jellyfish shall be declared the winner. In the event that an accident occurs along the way, the other paired candidate will win by default. They are to use their awakened abilities to endure the depths of the sea until the end. Team assignment: Mandragora, Fisalia, and Hebanon Fisalia. Cantarella Fisalia and Anis Fisalia. We start our team assignment together with Cantarella on a search for the Jelly Rose Medusa, one known to tingle at the slightest movement when alone. Though she reassures us that she knows exactly what to do. We spot the jellyfish before it's blocked by a bookshelf that requires 2 books, one titled Past and the other Present. The book titled Past hidden by spirits and shifting shelves, whilst the present was hid behind a shelf that simply required the past. Upon collecting the present, there's a sketchbook that was drawn in it not too long ago. I've got nothing for this sketchbook though. Fresh ink drawn in a sketchbook. If you got any theories, just feel free to comment. We return back to the bookshelf that now covered the jellyfish, now with both past and present in hand. Though before we can catch it, it floats away, and before we can follow it, we were ambushed by spirits. Upon releasing the spirits, we were greeted by a letter where the jellyfish once was. A letter from Hebanon to Mandragora. Dear Mandragora, my dearest sister, I cannot fathom anything more heart-wrenching than facing you in this trial, given all the years we've spent growing up together. As the Fisalia eldest daughter, you were always sheltered, yet you took it upon yourself to welcome me into this world with such tenderness. I still recall the way you would sew my clothes, even adding that little pink bunny design. It was so soft and fluffy, far more lovely than any strange creature from the deep. If the Fisalias can have only one maiden, I wish it to be you. To show my sincerity, I'll share my newly awakened ability with you. My tears are lethal. They paralyze people upon contact and then clog their blood. I swear by the name of Fisalia that this is true. Please think of a way to counter my power. When the time comes, I hope you can free me from this fate. Yours, Hebanon. Upon reading this, Cantarella reminisces about her time with Hebanon and how timid she was. She explains that only through suffering could the girls of Trous steal a fleeting moment of peace. Thus why she drank the poison brought to her. We continue our search for the jellyfish, building stairs and jumping to the upper floors, once again freeing spirits along our way and going through the maze of bookshelves. When we finally reach the jellyfish Medusa, we are shown a letter from Mandragora to Hebanon. Dear Hebanon, the head of our family has always taught us to be born into the Fisalias is to embrace coldness, decisiveness and ruthlessness. For the greater good our family upholds. Personal sacrifice holds little weight. As the eldest daughter, it is my duty to uphold these teachings. While our ways may seem harsh, they are accompanied by the weight of expectations and the honor of our name. I have resolved to relinquish all personal desires, allowing the family's code to seep into my very soul. Our impending duel will undoubtedly bring pain, yet we have both come this far. I trust we will become exactly what the head envisions for us. You too are a daughter of the senior line, and I implore you not to follow in our cousin's footsteps who defies the head's will. Gather your strength and determination so that when we face each other in the trial, we shall do so as equals. Should I become the maiden, I will honor your sacrifices, and if you are chosen, I hope you will do the same. Yours, Mandragora. Cantarella speaks of Mandragora highly, one who had shaped herself entirely to the family's belief, giving her all for this trial for a cause that wasn't worth any of her sacrifice. Though Cantarella still saw through her unwavering gaze, a flicker of reluctance, a shadow of something almost tender. Though even after consuming her poison, she still woke trapped in the abyss. We take the jellyfish back, but the jellyfish attempts to fight us. Unwilling to let Cantarella protect us, we refuse her request to take the jellyfish. But she reassures us before telling us how kind we are, to still want to carry her burdens while we ourselves are burdened. She grabs the jellyfish Medusa from us and it slowly vanishes. Though the arm she holds after shows she still feels the poison. She gives us a smile before we are shown one last notice. Cantarella, Fisalia and Anis Fisalia have passed the second trial. The same door that has appeared throughout the stone sphere appears before us. We knock 3 times and leave. We come back to the safe house, albeit it seems Cantarella has felt a change that smells of danger. Within this room, we find a contaminated sketchbook that we cleanse with Forte, a picture book that reads, 12 jellyfish drift in the sea, floating silently as can be. 2 swim slow, their pace a crawl. Sucked into a whirlpool, they fall. 10 jellyfish drift in the sea. Apple choked, they can't breathe. 2 that die, the rest are free. 8 jellyfish drift in the sea, deep down they go. Quietly. The sea's abyss demands more, several are eaten and all done for. Only a few small jellyfish remain. They panic and swim in vain, colliding like they've gone insane. How many jellyfish are there left? How many are there left? How many are left? Unimportant. Ultimately, they all get swallowed up. I've been seeing a bunch of people say that this jellyfish represents how many were actually in the divine trials. Not saying that it is or it isn't, but personally my own thoughts about this is more so how meaningless this trial was. To lose countless innocent girls in the pursuit for a maiden of unbreakable will. But that very maiden will be the same one who demolishes this trial. That and this feels more like a way for us to connect with how Cantarella felt after the second trial, her at her lowest. We pick up the eerie book and place it into the bookshelf just like the previous room. 2 spirits appear before us, and after we release them, we're greeted with a message in the picture book, one that foretells what we can assume to be Anis's final thoughts. Apart from, there's nothing here. Unobtainable, inescapable, can't go anywhere. Keep pouring dirt in. Everything aches, headache, throat ache, stomach, it's so bad. I want to rip out my and let it hang loose. Strange noises, incessant buzzing, and my head is going to explode. My throat and my fingers are charred. Abdominal pain, chest pain, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts so much. Darkness, coldness, no feelings, nothing. No elixir, no wish, no angels, no God. Headless, bodiless, bloodless, soulless. I do not exist. This was a really hard read, and personally this might be the reason why Cantarella was so strong-willed in freeing the Fisalias, witnessing firsthand the fall of the very girl she spent so much time with. Now we finally know what happened to Alice in the end. After reaching the last trial, it seems that the poisons that she has been enduring all this time has corroded her body beyond tolerance. Remember, Alice was never a pure-blooded Fisalia, never having a proper gradual poison resistance build-up. But it seems like she just had natural resistance to poison, one that seemed to have overloaded in her final moments. I'm speculating, but on the 5th line where she says keep pouring in, would be Cantarella's elixir that could neutralize most poisons, but the poison that seeped into her was far too much for any elixir to save her. This is my own personal theory, as I've seen that a lot of others online have come to the conclusion that Anis doesn't exist, but personally this gives me a better conclusion to this whole arc and why Cantarella has developed such a strong will and distaste for the trials. After closing the book, we approach Cantarella before we are drawn to a door on the table. We recall a vendor mentioning, as long as you follow divinity, luck will be on your side. A line that all fits too well within Renacita, a corrupted divinity, one that only brought suffering and despair to those who followed. Despite devoting their loyalty and themselves wholly, no one was safe. The door appears behind us, but let's go through our final 3 questions with Cantarella before we leave. About Habanon and Mandragora, and asking if she's alright. When asking about Habanon, she tells us that she was far too fragile and easy to prey for the Trinodians' whisperers. Thus, she was never really suited to be the maiden, even more so being chosen as the maiden would never be an honor. Both she and Mandragora vanished during the trial and no one knew their whereabouts, as if someone had quietly guided them out of sight right under the head's nose. When asking about Mandragora, she calls her rigid and willing to bend the rules, even if they were impossible, wishing she could have seen that in this world there's more than rigid obedience. Many things are far more precious, before repeating the same thing said in Habanon's. When asked if she's alright, she tells us why. She stands perfectly well right before us. Tears wouldn't grant her mercy, and she has never intended to blindly follow rules that were never meant to be kind. She has earned her place her own way, and that's why she stands here now, being able to share this with us. Well, let us leave this room for one last time, shall we? Before we exit this door, Cantarella warns us that beyond this door is the deep water zone, full of relentless surges, a place beyond light's reach, like the night sky devoid of stars, hungry to consume everything within. We walk in together with her while she tells us to stay close to her. Once we enter, we're greeted by a lifeless doll named Doll Dancer A that stares blankly at us. Final performance, she says, asking for her round hat. Cantarella's old memory starts resurfacing upon this encounter, almost as if she knows the end of this final performance. We search for the round hat backstage, switching dimensions. She beckons us to try it once more, gently, before we begin cleansing the spirits. While searching, we stumble upon a strange poster announcing the final performance. A poster depicting dolls that represent Cantarella and Anis dancing together. After searching the entire backstage, it seems the round hat isn't here. Thus, we go back in search of the doll. Before we leave, if you interact with the painting, it will tell you that various freshly painted art pieces lay here, possibly hinting that Anis' existence currently does tie itself to Sonorosphere itself. As we reach back at the entrance, we are greeted by an unknown announcer telling us to dance and fight. The maiden's crown will soon appear and rest upon one among you. Upon finding Doll Dancer C shoving a round hat into our hands, it is explained that the hat is coated in a girl's shimmering tears. Upon bringing the round hat to Doll Dancer A, the final performance begins. She tells us to go to the front for a closer view, though the rest assured bit seems more like a lie. When this moment starts, we lose Cantarella somewhere, but we are able to hear her try again despite the chaotic frequencies. finally meet Ennis once again, Ghost Girl A, Doll Dancer A. She beckons us to find Cantarella and help her. She grabs our lamp, illuminating the theatre we are in, and transporting us deep into the abyss, hearing everything people have said about her and the cries of the young girls who suffered through the divine trials. We continue running towards the lantern no matter how much it takes, no matter the depth of the fog we chase after the light. The light that shines right at the bottom of the deep sea. Our unbreakable Cantarella who will not falter no matter the whispers, nor will we. Finally hearing her voice instead of the whispers, we reach the lamp and light our way back to her. Finally meeting the previous head of the Fisalia who continue to berate and insult Cantarella at every end. A back and forth begins with Cantarella asking why has he not given up on his attachment to this world. He refuses to believe that her illusions could win over poison, but illusions can lead to true beauty. Thus begin our cleansing of the late head of the Fisalia's obsession, the very essence of this sonosphere. Our lantern being fueled by our trust and the only way we can cleanse the shadows from him. Upon cleansing him, the light shines upon us as Cantarella reassures his spirit as it slowly fades away, that she has entrusted the Fisalia's true faith to one most deserving, and the Trinidad's deceptions in the inverted tower have been exposed. No more whispers, no more children suffering through any more divine trials, finally freeing even the past of the Fisalias from their burdens. The sonosphere vanishing as we find ourselves back in the sanctuary, greeted by 5 girls. Cantarella having shielded these girls doing their duels with illusions to hide them within the estate.
最初から期待したのが間違いだったの。どんな願いも叶えてくれるこの城に隠された飛躍。私たちは闇に挑み恐怖を飲み込んだ。ここには何もない。死と静寂と私たち以外。飛躍、血の涙で作られ、毒薬、すべてを甘い夢に変える。私たちはやがて闇を切り抜け階段を登った。
Chloe explains that once Cantarella became matriarch, she had shielded them, keeping them safe within the castle's depths due to the Order trying to pry and find out the truth of what had happened. The Trinidad could have been sending the Order to figure out what had happened during the trials, fearing something else had happened. Thus why the Night of Remembrance exists. Every year, these girls would wear their masks and slip back home to their village in Egla town. Chloe confirming that Jojo is living happily and in good health. Cantarella tells her that she no longer needs to hide anymore, stating that we have not only solved the riddles together, but have crafted the elixir of revival. She explains to us now that the lies from the Trinidadians have been unraveled and the frequencies along with its situations outside have shifted. The Order can no longer watch the Fisalias, though the castle itself was the most affected by Trinidadians' influence, having trapped both the former head and the spirits of innocent girls that lost themselves to the trials. The moment Leviathan fell at the end of the main quest, the frequencies all unleashed at once, all these overwhelming painful emotions creating the sea of ghosts, attributing the removal of all this misery to us in our time together, creating the opportunity to finally let the girls go home. She continues to explain how she had intended to do all this alone, even going as far to participate as host and choosing ghost girls as the team, explaining her plans prior to our arrival due to the letter. She admits the letter wasn't her doing, but she knows who had brought us to her side, affirming us that she had no ill intention, but she had been within the sonosphere for so long that she was close to assimilating with the frequencies. Thus, when she had sensed the frequency on us, she knew she could no longer leave us out of this. She apologizes for showing her weak side of herself to us, admitting that even she herself had been tangled up, but by having us by her side, we were able to untangle these knots and weathered the thorns by her side. Thanking us for being by her side, cause it's not the ingredients nor the process, but the brewer who is important. Thanking us once more for being by her side and staying by her all this time. Chloe reassures Cantarella that she is no longer alone anymore, having us to rely on. We now take these girls back home on her behalf, despite wanting her to clear her name, something she minimizes as sea foam that easily fades away. After all, the Fisalias are a large family with deep-rooted issues that will take time to change. Before we head out, a scene plays where Chloe confirms our theory of Cantarella being the sorceress princess who wanted to leave and explore the world, giving her dreams up to be the head of the Fisalias and preventing any more innocent lives being lost here. No more divine trials and no more suffering. Her freedom for theirs, a fair exchange, she says. We come to the center of the night of remembrance, announcing that the riddles have been solved whilst holding the elixir of resurrection.
これが起死回生の飛躍だ。
本当に忘れられない夜になったわ。
We see Annie's fade away at the end there, which is the main selling point along with the cutscene of the girls walking down the stairs, that Annie's never really existed all along. There's also a side quest after the end that talks about an angel named Annis who would aid the call of those with unbreakable wills, appearing in different forms. Having combed the records over the past few centuries, unable to find any evidence of Annie's existence. This is the main points of the theory, which honestly fair, I can understand why, but at the same time it doesn't explain a lot of plot holes this creates. In the letters sent to Annis were in the first trial, it would also mean none of the girls would have unlocked their awakened abilities. The first trial is how they will achieve their first awakening, and the second was to overclock them. The last being able to resonate while overclocked with divine. It's more likely that Annis did exist, but it's not that she existed only in the sonosphere. More of the strong emotions created a frequency unique to her that was made from the trauma of loss. Loss that Cantarella no longer wanted to go through again when Annis did fall. After the second trial, hiding both Mandragora and Heavenon, why couldn't she hide Annis? Same reason why Chloe couldn't advance to the second trial. Though negligence was probably the bigger reason, it could be she had hoped that maybe Annis had unlocked the awakening due to a better poison immunity than others, but it wasn't immunity but a higher resistance. Thus, when met with the Jelly Rose Medusa, the most poisonous, she could no longer keep up, thus falling. I'll probably make a separate video talking more about this theory if anyone is interested, but let's finally see the end of this companion quest. Abby wakes up to us having a conversation with Cantarella before being told to go back to sleep. Cantarella invites us over to her castle to rest for the night, and with pleasure we walk her home. We are seen sitting next to her as she talks about the past one last time, refusing to accept that necessary sacrifice was really ever necessary, despite the so-called noble cause. Innocent lives were sacrificed without question, stating that this was nothing but living off the weak and trampling the will of others in the name of duty, explaining how we should never forget those that were burnt to ashes, the lives that should have never been lost. After all, we are more than just a firewood, giving more insight to her choices back in the main quest and why she had given up her second awakening power, allowing Imperator to combine their powers together to fight back. She continued by becoming the family head and drawing on all the resources of the Fisalias, all while stopping the brutal divine trials, whilst tricking the Order to keep the Trinolian off guard and finding a way to liberate Imperator and end the Trinolian once and for all. Although we do find out that Trinolians cannot die, as it feeds off the negativity of human civilization. She ends explaining her struggles with,
そんな時、あなたが現れた。
reassuring us that despite going through all this path that she has chosen, she plans to see it through no matter the cost, before telling us that despite all this, her hardships aren't worth mentioning compared to what we have endured, seemingly giving off the impression she does know more than just our deeds in Jinzo, maybe even the Black Shores and how long we've lived. Though she finally talks about what we've done thus far in the story so far for Renacita, finally coming to sit next to us, thanking us for ending the day of pain and suffering, bringing about a calm life for her, a miracle she calls it. As head of the Fisalia, she feels inclined to offer us a fitting reward for all we have done for her, offering us many different elixirs before settling on one that turns stone into gold. thus offering us the family's entire legacy, every elixir and every hidden secret, making the castle, as she calls it,
私たちはもはや一心同体。
telling us we deserve a sweet, peaceful sleep, one she's prepared to help with by offering us a special elixir that wafts true reality into our dreams, an offer we willingly accept as she seeks us to sleep, thus ending our companion quest. Before we end this video, there's a few other things that I'd like to share. Should the Shooting Stars Blaze is an exploration quest that gives us some insight into the spirits of the Fisalia, who shows us a meteor shower in turn for helping free them. Our conversation with her telling us of her ambition to reshape the Fisalia to prevent any more suffering and torment. Another fun fact would be, canonically, Cantarella does romantically love us, the rover. Be it male or female, the gender doesn't matter to her. All that does is the feelings involved. Wonder if this makes her pansexual though. That does, right? If you have time and have her intimacy maxed out, it's really worth reading more about her in the Resonator page in game, if you've pulled for her. Otherwise, I hope this helped you fall in love with Cantarella as much as I did, albeit I may not have been the best storyteller. I hope I was able to relay even an ounce of my love for the story, this being my favourite storyline thus far. If you like more Wuthering lore videos, comment down below, and if there's enough likes, maybe I will cover the next story, or the next character I fall in love with. Well, see you next time then.